Hey guys, Marisa at kitchentablestamper.com. It's time for video number 2. This is our Fitting Florets host code series. This is our host code. It's valid through November 15th. If you place your order and order the Fitting Florets collection, it is $97 and it includes the framed florets bundle, the gold adhesive back swirls, the framed and festive stamp set, and the Fitting Florets designer series paper. Or if you order any equivalent, $97.50 of product, and use this host code, you're going to get a make and take packet absolutely free. So this is project number 2. It's a candy box, and it will hold the Ghirardelli 2 square bars. It'll hold 2 of them, but the wrappers are a little long, so you have to roll your wrappers around. So I usually just will put one of those in here. But it will also hold 2 of these Moser Roth bars. I really like these. I get them from Aldi. And these are my favorite, 85% dark. They're wrapped just a little bit slimmer. And they fit too in there really nicely also. So it's a cute little candy box, great for giving some good quality chocolate here at the holidays. So let's get started. Oh, but first let me show you. If you missed video number 1 in this series, the host make and take packet will also make our 2-for-1 card. So you'll get the kit to make 2 of this kind of fun and simple Christmas card. I call it the 2-for-1 card. The video for this one is linked below. And in video number 3, I'll see you next week, we'll do this Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas fun fold. So we've got a Christmas card that you can mass produce, a special fun fold card, and a candy box. All right, we're gonna start with 5 1/4 by 6 Evening Evergreen. I love this neutral, beautiful base for the Fitting Florets designer series paper. If you haven't seen that yet, I'll show you after we do our scoring. It's got 2 pretty distinct color palettes that you can draw from, so you can get nice winter and holiday projects, but it's gonna have a beautiful multicolored spring palette too. And the Evening Evergreen is kind of a nice neutral background for either palette. Our Evening Evergreen is 5 1/4 by 6, and we're gonna start in the 5 1/4 orientation. We're gonna score 3/4 and rotate to the other 5 1/4 inch side and score 3/4. Then we'll turn once to the right, and we're gonna score on the 6-inch side at 2, 2 3/4, 4 3/4, and 5 1/2. That is our treat box. Let's go ahead and work the folds with the bone folder, and we'll trim according to the template. All right, there's our bone folder. We work those scores. Now let's mark the center of our panel so we can make a little thumb notch. And I like my stamp or my Simply Score tool for this. It's got a centering ruler right up at the top, so 6 is also 0. And then using the top ruler, you're gonna go to 1 7/8. And you'll see this score line is at 1 7/8 from the 0. This score line is at 1 7/8 from the 0. And then we can just mark. You'll notice that we marked on this 2-inch panel. These are our tuck tabs. All right, let's grab a little circle punch. I'm still using my 1/2 inch Stampin' Up! Circle punch for these little thumb notches. Give that a punch. And we're gonna trim. So when I'm trimming this, I like to start at this 1/2 inch. This is our tuck tab. And these squares, so not the little rectangle, but these squares are our fold in tabs. So if you start with a 1/2 inch toward you and you cut down 2 lines and then cut at an angle, take out the bulk, and then cut off. You can generously cut off that little rectangle. Now you've got your inside tuck flaps. So we're gonna do the same thing for the other side. Get a nice angle, take out that score, and then take off this rectangle. And it's okay to trim a little bit generously there. Now we're gonna cut straight along the bottom of our box do a little bevel cut on the glue tab. That gets rid of some of the bulk when we make that little triangle cut. So triangle and then straight along the outside of the box. Same here. The outside is nice and clean with a straight cut. The inside is angled so it's less bulky. All right, there's our box. I'm gonna grab a corner rounder. Don't think Stampin' Up! Has a corner rounder product right now. And I've been using my little We Are corner chomper for a very long time. It's got a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch side. I'm gonna use the 1/4 inch side. And we're going to just round that little tuck tab. If you fold in the side, it works a little bit easier getting it into a corner rounder. And there we go. So that is our box. Let's get it assembled. I'm going to show you a little trick here. So we're looking at the inside of the box. We're going to run adhesive on the front side tabs. So this is the front of our box. This is the front side tab. And on the same side of the box, we're just going to add a little angle here. This is such a small tab. I would normally do little equal sign, but it's such a little tab. We'll go at a diagonal. We're going to peel the release paper off of the small tabs, fold in the back side tab, fold up the bottom small tab, peel, and then wrap the front of the box to the back. Now your tab is sandwiched in between the back and the front. And when you put your candies in, there's no tab in there for things to get caught on. So it sandwiches it, brings the seams to the back of the box, and makes everything nice and tidy. So there's the base of our box. Let's get our designer series paper. I'm going to show you these. We're using, I think this kind of looks like a sweater, maybe like a knit pattern. And these pieces, we've got one for the front and one for the back, are 3.5 by 1 3/4. And the measurements will be on the project sheet. The back side of that is this multicolor floral. So if you do this, you've got a very different box than if you do this. Don't you agree? Let me show you these designer series papers before we glue those on. This is the Fitting Florets designer series paper. The packet is 12 by 12. You get 2 each, 6 double-sided designs. Here's one side. And look at that color palette. And then here is the other side. And look at that color palette. So we're working in our make and take packet more in this color palette, which definitely lends itself to the winter months. But when you flip and you get those polished pink and blushing bride, we've got a kind of a spring vibe going on here. So just a really cool designer series paper pack. Lots of options there. So if you're looking for something that's going to be very versatile, if you're looking for something that's going to be a pack of paper that you can grab for anything, a birthday card, your spring and Easter projects, or your Christmas candy boxes, this is the designer series paper for you. It's a nice one to have in your collection because you can do most anything with it. This designer series paper right here would be super cute with the mitten from the Celebrate with Tags stamp set. All right, there's our designer series paper. I'm just going to run my bone folder there to burnish that paper to the box. Same here, flip the other side. And now you'll see the designer series paper is just a little bit over our thumb notch. So let's trim that. You could, if you wanted to, put your designer series paper on when it's flat, and you don't have to trim it. But I tend to put my designer series paper on after I assemble the box. Let's put a Ghirardelli in there, and we're going to decorate. Let's get some basic white cardstock and do some Stampin'. Okay, I've got my Stampin' Pierce Matte and Memento Tuxedo Black. Now, our stamp sets, the framed florets, where we're getting our florals from, is photopolymer, so we want the Stampin' Pierce Matte. This is that beautiful all occasion stamp set. We're getting our Merry Christmas greeting from Framed and Festive, and this one is a cling rubber stamp set. We're going to ink the spray of flowers in basic black and stamp. I'm going to ink this spray of flowers, Memento Tuxedo Black. Get good coverage. And if you're having trouble with a big image like this, you can bring the ink pad to the stamp and get any trouble areas a little bit better. I'm going to stamp on basic white. And we're going to do a flower, individual, a single flower. Let's slide this out of here. An open ink pad is an invitation for me to ruin something. And we're going to color. So my Stampin' blends for this project are Balmy Blue, Night of Navy, Soft Succulent Combo, and then I'm going to use the light Evening Evergreen. I like to do all of one color at a time when I'm coloring multiple images. So my little flower is going to be Balmy Blue, and so are some of the flowers in the spray. So I'm going to do both at the same time while I've got the Balmy Blue here. So we're going to go back and forth just for a minute. I'm going to scribble in a nice base coat of light Balmy Blue for my flower, and then do some little shadows close to the center, and then spread those shadows out a little bit into the petal. Very simple, not complicated shadowing, shading. We're going to do that same kind of simple shading for our center flower here and the two small ones on the side. So for this little image right here, I'll just move quickly. We're only doing a little bit of shadows from the center. So if we move quickly, we should have a fine blend. I'm just moving from the center with a tiny shadow. All right, so we've got that. Now let's bring the two shades together. All right, then flower centers. So I'm going to do the navy center with Balmy Blue, light Balmy Blue, and then a little shadow of dark. That is our Balmy Blue. Let's set that aside. Now Night of Navy. We're going to do our two middle flowers, right middle and left middle, with light Night of Navy. And we're just kind of dabbing to fill in. It's such a small area here that I find that kind of a dabbing stroke works a little bit better than a circle. So if you watch me color, usually I'll do little ovals or little circles. When I'm getting out away from the center a little bit, I'll do that. But otherwise, kind of a dab and flick to get a nice solid base coat. Then, just like we did with the Balmy Blue, just a little bit of flicking from the center of the flower, add some shadow, and then from the base of the flower on the side view, and blend it together. We're not looking for complex. We might have to make a dozen of these. All right, now the center of our flower here, we're going to do light Night of Navy for those three. Add a little shadow of dark on the center flower, and then I'm going to dab some dots of light navy in our single flower. If you saw video number 1, we're going to do the leaves the same. But before that, let's do our little, I don't know, they're kind of elongated here. So I don't know that I'd call these berries, but it's a sprig of some sort. And I thought instead of doing more green, because we're going to do green leaves, both soft succulent and evening evergreen, I thought we would do blue. So for these little sprigs, I'm doing the light Night of Navy. I just thought it added another little dimension. If you use a different paper for this project, you might bring in some petal pink, or you might bring in some polished pink. if you were using a different designer series paper for these little sprigs, but I thought it livened things up a little bit. All right, now onto our soft succulent. We're going to do these leaves that have kind of this veiny pattern and these couple little more traditional shaped leaves in soft succulent. I like to do a base of the light and then alternating segments here with a touch of the dark to give some depth. We'll do all the leaves that are that shape the same way. So we've got one over here, two over here, and then a little guy right here. All right, this little guy, I'm just gonna color with the light. Soft succulent. Just a little shadow, dab a little shadow right along the flower, and then dab to bring the two shades together. And this, at the little base of this sideways flower, I'm gonna do dark soft succulent. All right, and the leaves that remain, I'll color with Evening Evergreen. I'm only gonna use the light. This color is so dark and these spaces are so small that there's really not a lot of room for doing any sort of shading. So we're just gonna work on kind of doing that dab and flick to fill in and give a nice solid fill. All right, there it is, lovely. It really comes to life, doesn't it? Add some color, bring it to life. Let's go do some die cutting now. We're gonna cut out the flowers that we just colored and then this awesome sprig and leaf. All those dies are from the framed Florets die set. I mentioned in the last video, but maybe you're just joining me here, so I'm gonna mention it again. I love Stampin' Up's new policy to name the die set the same as the stamp set. Isn't that exciting? All right, let's go ahead and cut these out. We've got our little outline. We'll line them up, but there's plenty of room on this platform to do our sprig and our leaf at the same time. So we'll get everything we need for this in one pass. Love that. Got a little scrap of gold foil for my leaf and a little scrap of Evening Evergreen for my sprig. All right, let's crank it. And there's our little bits and flowers. Love this. Isn't this beautiful? Let's weed it out. We got a couple of little bits we gotta work out here. Not too bad. And one more thing I want to show you. I did a die cut ahead of time. Got this little postage label. It's a long, skinny postage edge rectangle. It comes from the Floral Gallery dies. There's a long one and a short one. And just want to say, in die cut, and then it's got a beautiful floral stamp set that coordinates. I love this die. Let's go ahead and stamp our Merry Christmas greeting on it. I'm going to use Evening Evergreen, and Merry Christmas is from the Framed and Festive, which is rubber, so we don't need our Stampin' Pierce mat. But I am going to grab my magnet sheet here so it's a little bit easier to see the edges of my die. We're going to stamp to the right of center. Sorry if my hair gets underneath the camera. So we have room for our flower. Beautiful. I love this cute font. It's sweet, but maybe a little whimsical, but not goofy. I don't like a font that looks goofy, you know? All right, that's got to dry for a second before we add it to our box, but we also have to do this gorgeous ribbon. So if you saw this in the video number 1, you'll already know where I'm going. That soft succulent ribbon is colored with Stampin' Blends. So we're gonna use the light soft succulent and Stampin' Up's white crinkle seam binding ribbon. And you're gonna need somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 inches because we're gonna swoop behind this label all the way across our box. So what I like to do is hold the end of the ribbon, bring the brush end of the marker to the ribbon, apply a little bit of pressure, and then pull the ribbon toward me as I move the marker away from me. And once you've done a length, go back and take a look anywhere where it's still white on the edges, and just flick across with the tip of the marker. Now we have gorgeous, soft, succulent ribbon, sheer, crinkly, beautiful. And of course, if you've got soft succulent, then any Stampin' Blends markers you now have crinkle seam binding ribbon to coordinate. All right, well, our ribbon dries just a bit. Let's take our sprig and put it on with some Stampin' Dimensionals. And we're gonna put it on the box just so that it's right up against the thumb notch there. We want it as high as we can go without interrupting the function of that little thumb notch there. So we'll center it right to left and bump it up just to that space. Next, our Merry Christmas. And what I did with this was ran a little bit of, I have some fast views. You can use Stampin' Seal or Seal Plus. You can use tear and tape adhesive. In the last video, we used tear and tape. And we're going to kind of use our box as a guide. And we're going to add the sentiment and pick up the ribbon. We want a proper tail. And then we're going to loop one end and back. We're going to loop and come back the other way. Now there's no adhesive left for us here. And my loop is a little too wide at this end. I want to adjust and make it a little shorter. But when we come back, we're going to add some dimensionals to hold the ribbon on the back and also adhere our greeting to the box. So what I'll do is I'll take a little Stampin' Dimensional and get real close to the edge without going over. Same thing over here. And now we've got secure ribbon, and we can trim away from the spool. And short that edge a little bit. And our greeting is now peel and stick. Add that to the box. A little bit left. There we go. And our gorgeous little individual flower. I'm going to put a mini dimensional right on the end of my banner. And then add my flower. Don't cover your greeting. Ah, I almost forgot my sprig. Oh, good thing we only used 2 little dimensionals there. Don't be like me. Don't forget your sprig. Hold on. Let me lift my ribbon carefully and grab my sprig carefully. What I'm going to do with my sprig is put it right underneath the greeting with some glue dots. So I got my little glue dots. I love glue dots for these sprigs. We're going to use for the sprigs. We're going to use for the leaves. And we're just going to add maybe 2 onto the sprig here. And then we're going to add the sprig onto the box so that it doesn't go past the bottom. It can go up over the flowers a little bit. It can go past the edge of the box. We don't want it to go past the bottom because we want it to stand. And if this hangs off past the bottom, it won't really stand right. All right, now we can add our Christmas. There, now it looks good. I'm going to add one more dimensional here at the end of my greeting to give it some support. Secure it down. It's looking good. Now my gold leaf, I'm going to trim the stem a little bit. That stem is kind of hard to tuck and hide. We are paper florists. We need to tuck the stem and arrange the leaf. And it's easier to do if you just cut off the excess. Add a little mini glue dot there. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Let's add just a little more texture, a little more shine. I've got the gold adhesive backed swirls. Now you get 75 of these. I don't know what happens. Stampin' Up's got them in this really big package, so it looks kind of like you're not getting very many, but I'll tell you that the embellishment I'd most compare it to are the brushed brass butterflies. This is a nice metallic. It's a metal embellishment. It's got a great texture and shine. All right, there's our candy box project. If you've got any questions, email marisa@kitchentablestamper.com. Check the quick links below. If you're interested in this series, check out video number 1, which is our 2-for-1 Christmas card. And I will be back next Friday with this Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas fun fold. That'll be the last in the series. All right, guys, shop Stampin' Up 24/7, MarisaAlvarez.stampinup.net. Don't forget to use the host code if you'd like to get the Make and Take packet for these projects in the mail. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in video number 3.